Have you ever looked into your own child's eyes and realized they weren't seeing you as a parent anymore, but as a problem standing in the way of money? That's what happened to me. At 74, after a lifetime of building my home with my own two hands, my daughter hauled me into court claiming I had dementia so she could take my house and sell it for millions. Imagine that. Your flesh and blood calling you insane just to snatch the keys out of your pocket. But here's the twist they never saw coming. I walked into that courtroom with proof, with faith, and with a plan that turned their lies to dust. And when the gavel finally struck, I didn't just keep my home. I reclaimed my dignity, my legacy, and a future God wasn't finished writing yet. So stay with me, because what came next wasn't just revenge. It was a lesson in faith, family, and the kind of strength you only find when the people closest to you betray you. My name is Harold Whitaker, 74 years old, carpenter by trade, widower for 8 years. I live in Boulder, Colorado, in the same timber-framed house I built with my own hands, back in 1985. Every nail, every beam, every oak plank carries my sweat. My wife Martha and I raised our children here. She used to say this house was more than wood and stone, it was a prayer in lumber. She was right. The house has grown in value over the years. Real estate agents in town whisper numbers like $1.6 million, but to me it's priceless. Out back stand the apple trees. I planted the spring after our wedding and the garage where I taught my son to sandwood. Inside, every room is filled with memories, Martha's laughter, the smell of her cinnamon rolls the hymn she hummed while tending her roses. To me, this house isn't property. It's a fortress, a testimony. But to my daughter Vanessa and her husband Gregory, it's nothing but an asset. Vanessa is 47, polished and sharp, a financial planner, with a taste for silk blouses and luxury handbags. Gregory is a real estate broker, always wearing that shark tooth smile, forever talking about potential and returns. For years now, every visit has carried the same script. Dad, this house is too big for you. Dad, it's time to think of the future. Dad, you'll be happier at Sunrise Village, state-of-the-art, only $250,000 to buy in and $6,000 a month for the best care. They call it care. I call it exile. I may have arthritis in my knees, but my mind is clear as the morning air. I cook my own meals, tend the garden, even build cabinets for the neighbors when they need them. I rise at 5:30 every morning, not because I have to, but because 50 years of work etched that rhythm into my bones. It's the life God has given me, and I honor it. Still, they press harder. Vanessa brings in strange doctors, specialists who ask odd questions about memory. Gregory never hides his interest in the property. He drops hints about buyers waiting, about developers eager to tear down the orchard and put up luxury townhouses. I try to smile politely, but every time they step off my porch, I feel Martha's roses shiver as if they know what's coming. Then one gray July morning, I bent down to pick up the newspaper and found the envelope. Stamped in cold black letters, District Court of Boulder County. Inside, words that hit me like a hammer. Petition for guardianship of Harold Whitaker, age 74, on grounds of progressive dementia and inability to make responsible decisions regarding welfare and property. Filed by my own daughter, Vanessa Brooks. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I sat on the oak steps of the porch, the rain dripping off the roof, the paper trembling in my hands. My own flesh and blood had written me off as incompetent. Not out of love, not out of concern, but because she wanted the deed to this house. I carried the notice inside and placed it beneath Martha's photograph. Her smile looked back at me, calm and steady the way she always was when storms rolled in. My knees hit the hardwood floor, and I prayed aloud, "Lord, you gave me strength to raise my children and build this home. Don't let them strip it away from me. Give me wisdom, give me courage, give me the stubbornness to fight for the dignity you planted in me." When I rose from that prayer, I knew this wasn't just about four walls and a roof. This was about my life, my freedom, my God-given right to finish my days on my own terms. Stay with me, because what happened next, what I uncovered and what I revealed in that courtroom, turned my daughter's plan upside down. If you're listening right now, let me know where you're watching from, your city, your state, even your country. And make sure you subscribe to Brian's Story, because the rest of this tale only gets harder and truer. That afternoon, just as the thunderclouds were breaking apart over the Flatirons, a familiar silver BMW rolled up in front of my house. Vanessa stepped out first, heels clicking against the driveway, navy suit hugging her frame like armor. Gregory followed, his tie, perfectly knotted hair slicked back, carrying that grin he probably practiced in the mirror. I stayed seated on the porch swing, rocking slowly, the court notice folded in my shirt pocket. When they spotted me, Vanessa's lips curved into something that was meant to pass for a smile. "Dad," she said, brushing invisible dust off her sleeve. "We were in the area and thought we'd check on you." "Check on me?" I raised an eyebrow. "Or check on the property?" Gregory let out a polished chuckle. "You always were a straight shooter, Harold. But really, we're just worried about you. Sunrise Village has an opening right now. The kind of place where you'd have your own chef, gym, social clubs. Nothing like those dusty nursing homes." Vanessa jumped in before I could reply. "Dad, we're not saying you can't handle yourself, but you're 74. Those stairs get steeper every year. What if you fall? What if you forget to turn off the stove?" I leaned forward, letting my gray eyes lock with hers. "The stove. You mean the one with the auto shut-off you watched me install 3 years ago?" Her cheeks flushed pink. Gregory cleared his throat. "Accidents happen. Look, Harold, we're thinking about your future. This house could fetch $2 million, maybe more, with the orchard cleared. Imagine the comfort that money could buy for you: professional staff, daily activities, peace of mind." "Comfort for me or commission for you?" I asked flatly. For a moment, the smile slipped from his face, and I caught a glimpse of the wolf behind the suit. Vanessa reached for my hand, her manicured nails cool against my skin. "Daddy, please. We only want what's best for you." I pulled my hand back gently. "What's best for me is to live where your mother and I built our life. What's best for me is to sit on this porch with my Bible at sunrise, tend to Martha's roses, and walk down to church on Sundays. What's best for me is not to be warehoused like old furniture while you two cash in on my land." Her eyes welled with tears, and for half a second I almost softened. But I'd seen those tears too many times, when she wanted something, tears that came and went like rain showers in July. "I'm not signing anything," I said, standing to my full height. "Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And if you think you can push me into it, you've forgotten who raised you. I may be old, but I'm not senile, and I'm not surrendering this house." Gregory put an arm around Vanessa's shoulders, steering her back toward the car. "We'll talk again soon," he said smoothly. "You'll see reason eventually." As their car disappeared down Elmwood Lane, I felt my chest tighten, not from weakness, but from anger. They thought age had made me soft clay ready to be molded. They didn't know the steel still running through my bones. I went inside, sat at Martha's old writing desk, and laid the court notice on the polished wood. The rain had stopped, and a golden light poured through the east-facing window, the same window our little Vanessa once begged for as a girl. I whispered toward the silence, Lord. If this is the fight you've set before me, then give me the tools. I built this house with a hammer and a prayer. I'll defend it with the same. At that moment, I wasn't just a tired old man. I was a carpenter again, ready to measure, cut, and fit a plan. They wanted war in court, they'd get it. And I wouldn't fight alone. The next morning, the mountains wore a crown of mist, and the air smelled like wet pine. I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of black coffee, the court notice spread in front of me. The words blurred in and out of focus. Guardianship, dementia, inability to make responsible decisions. I'd built cathedrals of timber with less effort than it took to read those words. The knock on the door startled me. When I opened it, there stood Lydia Moore, my neighbor of 30 years. She held a casserole in one hand, umbrella in the other. Her short silver hair clung damply to her forehead, and her eyes clear and sharp the way an English teacher's always are narrowed as she looked at me. Harold Whitaker, she said, pushing past me into the kitchen. You look like a man who hasn't eaten since yesterday. Sit down. I managed a tired smile. I was planning to once I got my appetite back. She slid the casserole into the oven, then noticed the court papers on the table. She picked them up, her lips tightening as she read. Oh, Harold, she whispered. So it's true. Vanessa's actually doing this, I nodded. My throat burned, but no tears came. Filed it yesterday. Wants me declared incompetent so she can sell the house. Gregory's probably already lined up a developer. They mentioned tearing down the orchard, replacing it with townhouses. $2.5 million, they said. To them, I'm just the old scarecrow standing in the way of profit. Lydia's hands trembled as she set the papers down. That's monstrous. You've lived here your whole life. Everyone in this neighborhood knows you're as sharp as a tack. Tell that to a judge, I muttered. She straightened, teacher mode kicking in. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Harold, you can't walk into that courtroom alone. You need evidence, you need witnesses, and you need medical proof that you're of sound mind. I've never hired a lawyer in my life, I said stubbornly. I've solved my own problems since I was 10. I'll defend myself. Her eyes softened, but her tone stayed firm. Then at least give yourself the tools to win. Think of it like building a house you wouldn't start without lumber and nails. That made me chuckle despite myself. You always did have a way with words, Lydia. She leaned closer. First, you need an independent doctor, one your daughter can't influence. I know a neurologist in Denver, Dr. Palmer. Reputable, respected, impossible to bribe. We'll get you a full evaluation. I rubbed my chin. That could work. Vanessa's so-called specialists never even examined me. 2 of them just took her word. Exactly, Lydia said. Second, you need witnesses. People who see you live your daily life. Neighbors, shopkeepers, your fishing buddy Horace, even Pastor Jim from church. They can testify that you're active, capable, and clear-minded. I nodded slowly, a plan taking shape. And third, I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out an old tape recorder, the kind I once used on job sites to dictate measurements. Next time they come around, I'll let them talk. Gregory can't resist bragging. I'll catch him in his own words. Lydia raised an eyebrow. You know, recordings like that can be tricky in court. I know, I said. But it'll be insurance. And even if it doesn't make it into evidence, it'll remind Vanessa who she's dealing with. Her father's not some soft old man ready to be shoved into a corner. She studied me for a long moment, then placed her hand gently over mine. Harold, I don't doubt your strength, but don't let bitterness eat you alive. Remember what Scripture says, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. You're not alone in this. Her words settled into me like warm bread. Martha used to say the same, let God do the heavy lifting, Harold. You just keep steady. I exhaled. All right, Dr. Palmer, witnesses, and the recorder. We'll build this defense the way I built this house, plank by plank, prayer by prayer. For the first time since the envelope arrived, I felt my shoulders lift. Not relief, not yet, but resolve. The kind that comes when you stop staring at the storm and start gathering the tools to fix the roof. 3 mornings later, I was on the road before the sun even cleared the Rockies. Lydia insisted on driving, but I told her no. I needed to prove to myself and to anyone watching that I could still manage a car, still navigate the highway, still function like the man I've always been. The drive down to Denver took about an hour. I had my Bible on the passenger seat open to Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? I repeated that verse under my breath with every mile. At the Harris Neurology Center, I met Dr. Charles Palmer. He was in his 60s, tall, and composed, the kind of man who shook your hand firmly and looked you straight in the eye. Mr. Whitaker, he said, your neighbor told me you want an honest evaluation. You'll get nothing less. 3 hours of testing followed. Memory drills, word recall, drawing a clock, face logic puzzles, even balance and coordination checks. I answered every question with the precision of a carpenter cutting wood. When it was over, Dr. Palmer leaned back, tapping his pen. Mr. Whitaker, for a man of 74, your results are excellent. No signs of dementia, no cognitive decline. I'll put it in writing, stamped and signed. I nearly laughed out loud. You just gave me the best news I've had all year, doctor. That evening, back at home, I sat at Martha's old desk and opened a brand new leather notebook. On the first page, I wrote in my clumsy block letters, daily journal. Evidence of my life. Every morning after prayers, I filled it in. 6:00 a.m. Made coffee, read scripture. 8:00, repaired porch railing. 11:00, grocery run, bought milk, eggs, flour. 1:00, met Horace for fishing at Boulder Creek. Caught 2 trout, cleaned them myself. Each line was a brick in the wall of my defense proof that my mind hadn't slipped. Lydia stopped by, often bringing encouragement, and sometimes casseroles I swore were enough to feed a whole congregation. You're building your case the way you built this house, she said one afternoon, leafing through my journal. Steady hands, steady faith. But I knew paperwork alone wouldn't stop Vanessa and Gregory. I needed their own words to condemn them. So I prepared. I dusted off that old tape recorder, checked the batteries, and practiced slipping it into the breast pocket of my flannel shirt. The red light was tiny enough to hide. I rehearsed lines in front of the mirror. You might be right. Maybe the house is too much for me. Tell me again how much it's worth. Gregory. It felt dirty pretending to doubt myself, but as Martha used to say, sometimes the serpent has to taste its own poison. Sure enough, the call came. Vanessa's voice on the line, sugary sweet the way she used to sound when asking for money in college. Dad, about those papers. Maybe we should sit down tonight. 7 o'clock. I made my voice sound weary, almost uncertain. Maybe you're right, sweetheart. Maybe the house is too much for one old man. Come by, we'll talk. Silence on her end, surprise. Then, really, that's wonderful, Dad. We'll be there. When I hung up, I bowed my head. Lord, I whispered, be with me tonight. Let their words reveal the truth, and keep my heart steady, no anger, just light. At 6:30, I brewed tea and set out Martha's old china cups, the ones painted with roses. I wanted everything to look calm, ordinary. I slipped the recorder into my shirt pocket, pressed the button, and felt the faint hum under the fabric. At exactly 7, their BMW rolled up. Vanessa walked in with a rehearsed smile. Gregory followed, smelling of cologne and ambition. I greeted them with open arms, acting every bit the tired, uncertain old man they thought they'd broken down. Sit, sit, I urged, pouring tea. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. Gregory's eyes gleamed. The shark had scented blood. And as their words began spilling out, numbers, plans, even the name of a developer ready to bulldoze my orchard, I sat quietly sipping tea, while the little recorder in my pocket captured every syllable. The morning of the trial dawned cold and bright, the kind of Colorado day when the sky looks scrubbed clean. I woke before the alarm, shaved carefully, and put on the dark blue suit I hadn't worn since Martha's funeral. My hands trembled on the buttons, but not from weakness, from adrenaline. By 9 o'clock, Lydia pulled up in her modest Ford. She was dressed in a gray blazer that reminded me of her teaching days, hair pinned neatly, Bible tucked under one arm. She didn't ask how I felt. She just looked me in the eye and said Psalm 46. Harold. God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. At the courthouse, we were met by Horace, my fishing buddy, his weathered hands stronger than mine, as he gripped my shoulder. Then Betty, the grocery clerk, came bustling up in a floral dress that looked far too cheerful for a courtroom. Even Pastor Jim had come tall and calm, offering a quiet prayer before we went inside. Harold, he whispered, the Lord already knows the truth. All you have to do is stand in it. The clerk called the case Whitaker versus Whitaker petition for guardianship. My stomach clenched at hearing my own last name split in two like a cracked board. We took our places. On the other side sat Vanessa, polished like a magazine ad, and Gregory smug in his charcoal suit. Their lawyer, a tall man with graying temples, radiated confidence. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and began, Your Honor, this case is about love and concern. My client, Mrs. Brooks, has watched her father decline. Forgetfulness, irritability, unsafe behaviors. She has consulted 3 medical specialists who confirm early dementia. Out of devotion, she seeks guardianship so she can ensure his safety and well-being. I could almost admire his smooth delivery, if the lies hadn't been about me. He laid out their so-called evidence, 2 affidavits from doctors I'd never met, 1 thin report from Dr. Harris, the memory specialist Vanessa had sprung on me weeks ago. Then came their witnesses. A nurse from Sunrise Village testified about ideal care for seniors in decline. A neighbor I barely knew repeated gossip that I'd been confused at the mailbox once. And then Vanessa herself took the stand. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue and said, It breaks my heart, but Dad's not the same man. He forgets the stove, he misplaces things, he lashes out. I just want him safe. Sunrise Village would give him dignity and community. Community. That word almost made me laugh out loud. When their lawyer finished, the judge turned to me. "Mr. Whitaker, are you prepared to respond?" I stood slowly, my knees aching, but my voice steady. "Yes, Your Honor. I will represent myself." A ripple went through the room. I opened the folder in my hands, laid the first document on the table, and spoke. "I am 74. I built my house with these hands. I still garden, shop, cook, and attend church every week. I am not confused. I am not lost. And I am not surrendering my life because my daughter and her husband see dollar signs where I see memories." I held up the medical report, stamped and signed by Dr. Palmer. "This is a full neurological evaluation from a leading specialist in Denver. He found no signs of dementia. None." I gestured toward my friends in the gallery. "These are my neighbors and witnesses. They see me live every day, working, reading, worshiping. They will testify that I am clear-minded." And then I paused, pressing my palm over the small tape recorder in my jacket. The weight of it steadied me like a hammer in my tool belt. "But, Your Honor," I said, lowering my voice, "there is more. Because this case is not about my well-being. It is about greed. I have evidence of private conversations between my daughter and her husband. Words that will show their true motives." The judge leaned forward, brows arched, Vanessa's face drained of color. Gregory's grin twitched. "Call your first witness," the judge said. And with that, the battle truly began. The judge's gavel tapped once. "Mr. Whitaker, call your first witness." I nodded toward the gallery. "I'd like to begin with Dr. Charles Palmer." A tall man with a silver beard entered his presence, commanding respect. After swearing in, he sat upright, hands folded. "Dr. Palmer," I asked, "would you tell the court your profession?" "I've practiced neurology for over 30 years, he replied. "Board certified. Former head of neurology at Denver General." "And you examined me personally?" "Yes, for 3 hours. Comprehensive tests, memory recall, cognitive reasoning, spatial awareness, motor coordination. All results well above average for his age group." The judge studied him. "Doctor, do you see any evidence of dementia in Mr. Whitaker?" "None whatsoever," he said firmly. "He is fully capable of making independent decisions." The plaintiff's lawyer rose, trying to shake him. "Dr. Dementia can be subtle, can't it? Couldn't he mask symptoms for a few hours?" Dr. Palmer didn't blink. 3 hours of testing is more than enough to expose impairment. Mr. Whitaker shows no such decline. Murmurs rippled through the room. I felt my spine straighten. Next came Betty, the grocery clerk. She bustled to the stand, her floral dress bright against the solemn wood. "Mr. Whitaker shops with me 3 times a week," she said. "He always remembers his list handles, cash, and cards without a hitch. Honestly, he's sharper than half my younger customers." The gallery chuckled softly. Then Horace, my fishing partner, took the stand. His hands were rough from years outdoors. "We fish every Saturday," he said. He ties knots, remembers old stories, even corrects me on dates. If that's dementia, then I've been crazy for 20 years. Even the judge smiled faintly. Finally, I called Lydia. She walked to the stand, dignified and calm. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. She'd never liked Lydia. "Mrs. Moore," I asked, "how long have you known me?" "Over 30 years," she replied. "Our families were close. Since Martha passed, Harold and I see each other almost daily." "And have you noticed any decline in my memory or judgment?" "Absolutely not," she said, voice steady. "He reads complex books, repairs furniture, even helped me fix a leaky faucet last month." I leaned closer. Mrs. Moore, did you ever overhear conversations between my daughter, her husband, and myself about selling my house? Lydia's eyes flicked to Vanessa. Yes. 2 weeks ago, I was in the kitchen when Gregory discussed selling the property to a developer, Walter Higgins, for $2.5 million. He spoke of bulldozing the orchard and building luxury townhouses. Vanessa didn't object. In fact, she mentioned that Sunrise Village would cost about $1 million total, leaving a fortune left over. A gasp shot through the room. The plaintiff's lawyer jumped up. Objection, pure hearsay. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the tape recorder. Not hearsay, Your Honor. Evidence. I pressed play. Gregory's voice filled the courtroom, smooth and arrogant. $2.5 million, maybe more, once the orchard's cleared. Sunrise Village will barely cost half that. The rest we can invest. Then Vanessa's voice, low but clear. Dad doesn't need to know details. Once guardianship's through, we'll handle it. The silence that followed was thunderous. Even the ceiling fans seemed to pause. The judge leaned forward, expression like steel. Mr. Whitaker, this recording was made by you as a participant. Yes, Your Honor. Then it is admissible. Vanessa's face had gone pale. Gregory shifted in his seat, jaw tight. Their lawyer fumbled his notes, his confidence evaporating. I turned to the judge. This is not about my safety. This is about profit. My daughter and her husband conspired to strip me of my rights, declare me incompetent, and sell the very house I built for my family. The judge's gaze locked on Vanessa. Do you wish to respond? Her lips parted, but no words came. Tears welled, whether real or staged, I couldn't tell. The judge raised a hand. Enough. I've heard what I need. I sank back into my chair, heart pounding like a drum. For the first time since the envelope arrived, I felt something more than fear, hope. The truth was out, and truth once spoken aloud has a way of changing everything. The judge's gavel struck once, sharp as a rifle crack. This court finds no basis for guardianship, Judge Ramirez declared, his voice carrying through every corner of the room. Mr. Whitaker has demonstrated full mental competence. The petition is dismissed with prejudice. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was as if a weight that had been crushing my chest for weeks finally lifted. My knees nearly gave, but I locked them straight, refusing to show weakness. The judge wasn't finished. He turned his eyes on Vanessa and Gregory, and the air grew heavy. What troubles me most, he said, is the clear evidence of ulterior motives. Guardianship is meant to protect vulnerable individuals, not to line pockets with profit. Mrs. Brooks. Mr. Brooks, this court warns you. Any further attempts of this nature may invite criminal inquiry. Vanessa's face flushed crimson. Gregory stared at the table as though it could swallow him. The gavel came down again. Court adjourned. I sat still as the room erupted in whispers. Lydia squeezed my hand, tears glistening in her eyes. Horace slapped my back, nearly knocking the wind from me. Betty hugged me right there in the courtroom, her floral perfume strong enough to make the clerk sneeze. But my eyes stayed fixed on Vanessa, my daughter, my flesh and blood. She had once sat on my shoulders at the county fair, her small hands tugging my ears as she laughed. Now she sat hunched, glaring at the floor, caught in her own web. As the crowd thinned, I walked toward her. My cane tapped against the wooden floor, steady and deliberate. She looked up only when I stopped inches from her. Why, Vanessa? My voice was low, but it carried the weight of decades. Why would you do this to me? Tears welled again, though I could not tell if they were born of shame or strategy. Dad, I was trying to think of the future. For all of us, I repeated, my voice cracking. You weren't thinking of me. You were thinking of money. You were thinking of that man. I jabbed a finger at Gregory, who stiffened but didn't meet my gaze, and of deals and townhouses. Not of the orchard your mother planted, not of the prayers we whispered under this roof. You forgot where you came from. Her lips quivered. I didn't forget. I thought maybe it was time to let go. Let go, my laugh was bitter. Your mother died in that house. I'll die in that house too, and it won't be on your terms. Not while God gives me breath. Gregory stood adjusting his tie, his voice slick as ever. Come on, Vanessa. He's set in his ways. Nothing we can do about it now. I stepped forward, blocking his path. No, Gregory, nothing you can do. This is between a father and his daughter. For a long moment, Vanessa and I just stared at each other. I searched her eyes for the little girl I once carried on my shoulders, the girl who asked for an east-facing window so the sun would wake her like a kiss. But all I saw was distance. Finally, she stood brushing past me, her perfume sharp and cold. Gregory followed, his hand firm on her back, as though she were a client he was escorting out of a failed deal. They didn't look back. The echo of their footsteps trailed off, leaving me standing in the empty courtroom, clutching the folder of evidence that had saved my freedom. I whispered a prayer, not of victory, but of grief. Lord, I've won the house, but I fear I've lost my daughter. Help me carry both truths. And then I turned to Lydia, who waited at the door with tears in her eyes. Come on, Harold, she said gently. Let's go home. Home. The word never sounded sweeter. The courthouse steps felt heavier going down than they did going up. I gripped the iron railing with one hand, my cane in the other, the sun glaring down on me as though to remind me I was still alive, still free. Lydia walked beside me, silent but steady like the lighthouse my late wife once loved to paint. Horace and Betty lingered behind, giving me space. Feels strange, doesn't it? Lydia finally said. What does I asked? Winning. She was right. Victory didn't taste sweet the way I imagined. It tasted like ash. I had kept my house, my name, my dignity. Yet the hollow ache inside my chest told me I'd also lost something I couldn't replace. We reached her old Ford, parked at the curb. I climbed into the passenger seat slowly, my joints protesting. Lydia drove us through Bedford's familiar streets. The red brick library, the white steeple of First Baptist, the corner diner where Evelyn and I used to share cherry pie after Sunday service, it all rolled by like a memory I could touch, but not hold. Do you regret it? Lydia asked, her eyes still on the road. Which part's standing your ground? I leaned back, sighing. No. If I'd given up, Evelyn would never forgive me. She planted those roses with her hands. She filled that house with hymns and prayers. To let them bulldoze it down for condos, that would have been a second funeral for her. Lydia nodded. Then don't carry guilt. You fought for what was right. You didn't pick this battle. They brought it to you. The words sank deep, but my heart still twisted. She's my daughter, Lydia. My only girl. I held her the day she was born. Taught her to ride a bike. How did we get from that to this? We stopped at a red light. Lydia reached across, laid her hand over mine. Sometimes children wander far from the path we hoped for them. You didn't fail her, Harold. You gave her roots. What she did with them, that's between her and God. Her words pierced the fog. I closed my eyes, whispering a prayer so soft only the Lord could hear. Father, I did my best. Help me let go of what I can't fix. Teach me to love without being destroyed. We pulled into my driveway just as the evening sun dipped low, painting the orchard in gold. Evelyn's roses glowed along the fence, defiant against the coming night. I stepped out, inhaling the scent of earth and bloom, and for the first time since this ordeal began, I felt the ground solid beneath my feet. Inside the house greeted me with silence, but not emptiness. The walls held stories, not chains. The oak floors whispered strength, not sorrow. I set the court papers on the mantel beneath Evelyn's framed photograph. Her smile seemed a little wider in the light. Lydia brewed tea in the kitchen, moving about as if she belonged there. When she brought the cups, we sat on the veranda where the crickets had already begun their evening chorus. You know, she said, a storm like this often clears the sky for what's next. What's next for me, you think? She smiled gently. Maybe it isn't about what you think. Maybe it's what God has prepared. You've guarded this house. Maybe now He'll send someone new to walk through its doors. Her words lingered in the air like incense. I thought of Ethan, my grandson from Edward's side, studying architecture out on the West Coast. A boy I'd barely known but who carried my stubborn chin and Evelyn's soft eyes. Perhaps, just perhaps, the next chapter of my life would not be about defending walls, but about passing down their stories. I lifted my teacup toward the horizon. To new beginnings, I said. Lydia clinked hers against mine. Amen to that. As the night deepened, peace settled on me like a warm quilt. The fight was over, but the future was not. And for the first time in many years, I felt ready for whatever God had written on the next page. The morning after the trial, I woke before the rooster crowed. Habit, I suppose. 74 years of rising early leaves a man shaped like clay that never softens. I shuffled to the kitchen, brewed coffee black as midnight, and sat by the window with Evelyn's roses glowing in the dawn. The papers from court lay neatly stacked on the mantel, but I didn't touch them. I didn't need to. The house was still mine. The silence was still mine. Yet the victory felt unfinished. A man can win the battle and still wonder what he's lost. I thought of Vanessa's face in that courtroom, pale, strained, lying through teeth I once paid braces for. My only daughter, yet a stranger now. I whispered to the Lord, "Is this what survival costs?" Winning the house but losing her, the answer didn't come, at least not in words. Sometimes God speaks through doors, not voices. That afternoon, the phone rang. The caller ID read Edward. My son out west, the quiet one who built his life 3,000 miles from Bedford. We hadn't spoken much beyond birthdays and Christmas, but I picked up. Dad, his voice cracked through the line, deeper now, yet still my boy. I heard about the trial. I'm sorry I wasn't there. You've got your own life, son. I handled it, I said, steady as I could. I know, but I should have been there. A pause. Ethan heard about it too. He wants to talk to you. Ethan, my grandson. 19 now, off at college, studying architecture. I'd seen him only a handful of times, but Evelyn always swore he had the family eyes, gray, stubborn, with a touch of wonder. Put him on, I said, heart thumping harder than it had in that courtroom. Grandpa. The voice was young, but sure filled with something I hadn't heard in years, respect. It's me, Ethan. Hello, boy. How's life treating you? Busy, classes, projects, but... Grandpa, I want to see you. Not just for a weekend. I want to stay with you. Harrisville's only a half-hour drive and rent near campus is insane. If you'll have me, I'll pay what I can and help with the house. I nearly dropped the receiver. My grandson choosing me. Choosing this old house everyone else wanted to bury. Are you sure Ethan living with an old man isn't exactly campus fun? I don't want campus fun, he said quickly. I want roots. I want to learn from you. Mom says you built that house board by board. I'm studying buildings, Grandpa. Who better to learn from than the man who made his own? I felt tears prick behind my eyes. Not the bitter kind I'd shed after court, but the kind Evelyn used to call healing water. Then it settled, I said. The east-facing room's yours. Be here Friday. When I hung up, my hands trembled. Lydia was at the stove frying eggs. She looked over her shoulder. Good news, I told her everything. She smiled wide, the kind of smile that heals more than words. See, God closes one door, but another opens. You lost a daughter's loyalty, Harold. But he's sending you a grandson's faith. I knotted my throat too tight for speech. For the first time in years, the house felt ready for laughter again, not just the echo of memory, but the promise of tomorrow. That night, I pulled out clean sheets and began clearing Elaine's old room, the one with the window facing east, the one she once begged me for. Dust flew, boxes shifted, but my heart was lighter with every sweep of the broom. It wasn't just a room anymore. It was a bridge, and as the sun set crimson over Bedford, I realized something. Perhaps my legacy wasn't the house alone. Perhaps it was the chance to pass on not just bricks and boards, but faith stories and the truth that no one, no daughter, no greedy son-in-law could erase a man's worth when God still had plans for him. Friday came wrapped in sunlight. I was on the veranda by noon, checking my watch every few minutes like a boy waiting for Christmas morning. The east-facing room was clean sheets, fresh curtains hung. I'd even polished the old oak desk Evelyn once used for her church letters, thinking Ethan might need it for his drawings. At 3 sharp, a cab pulled into the drive. Out stepped a tall young man with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a suitcase in his hand. His hair caught the sun, and in his eyes I saw Evelyn, steady, bright, unafraid. Grandpa Ethan called, waving. I rose, my cane in one hand, the other outstretched. Our hug was awkward at first, then firm, then tighter still. I hadn't realized how much I'd hungered for the weight of family, not asking for money, not scheming for deeds, but simply being there. Welcome home, I said, my voice thick. He smiled wide. It already feels like it. Inside, he set his suitcase down in the east-facing room. He ran his hand along the sill, peered out at the orchard. This is perfect, Grandpa. Waking up with the sun, just like you built it for. I chuckled. Your aunt asked for that window when she was your age. Funny how God works. She turned her back on it, and now it's yours. Ethan didn't answer right away. He placed a framed photo from his backpack on the desk, Evelyn at the beach, her hair wild in the wind. I wanted her here too, he said quietly. By supper, Lydia had joined us. She carried in a casserole, her laughter filling the kitchen, as though she'd lived there forever. We sat down together, 3 generations in spirit, if not in bloodline, bound by something deeper than names on paper. I carved the roast. Ethan bowed his head and said, Grace, his voice steady. Lord, thank you for bringing me here, for giving my grandpa strength, and for this home that still stands because of him. Amen. Amen. My throat tightened. I caught Lydia's eyes glistening across the table. We ate, we talked. Ethan told us about his professors, about how he wanted to design buildings that breathed with the land instead of choking it. I told him how every beam in this house had a story, how Evelyn had chosen the wallpaper herself, how every nail held not just wood, but prayer. He listened, scribbling notes in a little book he carried as though my words were blueprints worth saving. "Grandpa," he said, "after dessert, we should write all this down. Not just for me, for the family. For the future. Houses fall, but stories don't if you tell them." I leaned back, watching him. My heart swelled with something I hadn't felt in years: hope. "Then let's do it together," I said. "You draw, I'll tell. Between us, we'll keep it alive." That night, after Lydia had gone home and Ethan was unpacking, I sat in my chair by the window. The roses swayed under the moonlight. The house no longer felt like a fortress I had to defend. It felt like a living thing again, with laughter and purpose running through its veins. I whispered into the stillness, "Thank you, Lord, for giving me back not what I thought I wanted, but what I needed. A reason to keep building." And to you listening to my story, I want to ask, have you ever discovered that family isn't just about blood, but about the ones who choose to walk beside you? If you have, you know what I mean. If you haven't, don't lose faith. God has a way of sending the right people when you least expect it. This is Brian's story, and if it touched something in your heart, don't forget to subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Share this with someone who needs to hear that dignity, faith, and family can still stand tall, even when betrayal tries to tear them down. Because sometimes the nastiest surprise we can give betrayal is to keep living well. And that's the heart of it, my friends. This isn't just a tale about a house or a courtroom. It's about something deeper: faith, dignity, and legacy. Faith that God doesn't abandon us even when our own children turn away. Dignity that no one, no daughter, no son-in-law, no piece of paper has the right to strip from us. And legacy not only in bricks or deeds, but in the stories, the lessons, and the love we choose to pass on. Here on Brian's Story, we share family drama stories, family revenge stories, and true life stories. Because they remind us of one thing: you're never too old to stand tall, never too weak to reclaim your voice, and never too forgotten for God to write a new chapter in your life. If this story spoke to you, I ask you to do two simple things. Subscribe to Brian's Story and share this video with someone who needs to remember that their worth is not defined by betrayal. Leave a comment, tell me where in the world you're listening from, and let's keep this circle of truth alive. Because in the end, what remains isn't the house or the money or the trial. What remains is the unshakable truth that even in our later years, faith, dignity, and legacy will always carry us home.